So it's basically if the angle is 90, then all we want to do is set this to if direction is right. Otherwise, we set this to flip. And we can put the hits inside of here, the same with overlaps. Overlaps isn't even used, is it? So we can just get rid of overlaps. So no problem. And we'll just change the player controller so that it can't rotate those things. Actually, I have an idea. The movement utils need to this ignore penetrating should actually there's more to it. So if our impact normal is it should be start penetrating right here for this. Alright, let's see if this works real quick with just the basic platforms. And what this should do is this might actually fix our swapping around, because what was happening was if we're penetrating the object, then the normal for the collision is actually going to be all sorts of weird. So it might be that was what was causing us to do stuff. Alright, so if we change our player logic here in the initialization stuff, we want the onCreate to actually comment. We want to disable rotation just like this. What's it called? Set rotate physics bodies. And we just want to set that to false. Yeah, so we're no longer falling through our platforms, doing crazy shenanigans. We're no longer rotating our physics boxes on Bitey, but that's actually, like, I really don't care if we do. We should be keeping him symmetrical, so this will probably help a lot of our motion and weird shenaniganry from happening. That was happening before. So now the question is, how do we make it so we fall through these platforms when we hold the down key? Like if we're running and we hold down, we should definitely like not run up one of these things. So let's think about what we should do to make that happen. Alright, so how exactly would we want to implement this? It's going to be something like we're running along and our normal is, you know, a certain amount, and all of a sudden we've got this thing that's, you know, at a very different normal that will be running up. So I think it's going to be something like if we should follow something, maybe if we're holding down, we should have a relative, I mean, we can set the angle of this thing to be like, okay, the Z needs to be, like it's the minimum Z needs to be, well, this is interesting because it's not the Z, it's actually the Y axis, because the Z is going to be like 1 here, and if this is an incline, like the Z is going to be less than, but if it's a decline, like we always want to follow declines. I guess that's the other question of if there's a one-way platform that goes down through another one-way platform, kind of like If we had a one-way platform that went like this, what the hell do we do? Well, let's see what happens right now with that. Like we'd want it if we held down, basically, that we would continue running down. Anyway, I'm going to take a short bio break and I will be back. And we will continue to solve the one-way platform problem. Well, Karakan, it's kind of it's not really a realistic thing, but it's something that, like, I don't know. If there's any sort of running track or something that, like, maybe some of this is obscured with grass or whatever, so you can't really see exactly what Bitey's running on or whatever, like, whatever surface that we're using here, I would imagine we want to stay on the surface that we're running on. you know, it gives us options if we want to make some sort of special tracks. That'll work real nicely. But if I was running along that surface, I would definitely expect, you know, we could always have some sort of animation or something else, but we don't want to lose speed. And if we do lose speed, we still want to have your motion go nicely through, you know, whatever. So if I held down there, I want to just run through that platform, kind of like I do here. So what exactly should it be? It should be, if you're running along a surface and you're holding down, we want to ignore Z's that are very different from the Z you're on. So if I'm holding down here, I want to ignore any Z's that are outside of a range, is what it seems like. So we want like a current Z and like an OK Z. Okay, so how about that? That actually, I think, will work pretty well for a lot of this, for ignoring. So how do we actually set that though? Like, we need to get the current surface Z that we're on, and when we do the test, it's the allowed extra Z. I mean, those are the parameters, so I want to get like float get surface Z. And we want float get surface Z diff. And it's if you're holding down, that diff goes to like 0.2, otherwise it's like 1 or something. So we're gonna need a float set surface Z diff allowed diff. That's gonna be float diff. And we'll need a float m surface Z, and we need a float m surface Z allowed diff. Surface Z allowed diff. And we're going to set it to 1.0f. I guess the allowed diff is 2 by default. Alright, so let's start using this. And the one-way platform stuff is also something that we don't necessarily need in the game. It's just something that might be very handy in case we want to do certain things. Like, you could build the entire game without one-way platforms. I mean, just look at like Mega Man or whatever. Like, they don't have one-way platforms in those. I mean, at least I think in some of them they don't. But you can make entire games and just be like, well, the only way you can get through this platform is if there's a ladder and stuff like that, as opposed to like actually being able to jump through stuff. Alright, so that should allow those. We need to actually set the surface Z. So I need like update in air. Update flying loco. We're gonna say m surface z equals 0.0f. So update locomotion on ground. Well, let's see. Our surface Z should be set when we actually move, I think. Movement direction vector is based on the impact normal. Alright, so this is sweeping us down to the ground. If we're sweeping down to the ground, we should be fine. Because we're not moving ourselves up, we should just be working properly. So I think it's mantling, maybe? Mantling probably isn't going to be that big of a deal with this. So we have like an obstructed floor path movement. Oh god, what are we doing? It's basically traversing a seam, or like if we just set the surface normal to our starting sweep normal, that means we'll be running along and we want our traverse seam to actually work, I think. Our mantling doesn't really matter. It's just going to be like... because this thing is going to be either on or off, and if you're holding the down key, we don't want... and you're traversing a seam, you're going to be traversing a seam. It's just going to be the Z of... so it's going to be inside of traversing a seam. We're going to sweep. So I guess we just need to set the surface Z to the impact normal, and that's just going to be the sweep one, the movement collision sweep normal dot Z, and that's it. Alright, so if we go to the movement utils, let's see, let's get the float, the allowed Z diff. And float surface Z equals object get surface Z. A lot of logic in here for this. Alright, so if allowed Z diff is greater than fmath absolute value of hit impact normal Z minus surface Z, then we continue as well. Okay, so that should do it. We should be able to see if we can actually get this to work. We need to, of course, add some logic to our movement. And you never know, Karakan, there might be like different tracks on the level or something else where we can have Bitey kind of go into the background or go into the foreground a little bit, etc. So there's no reason that this logic has to be, you know, just like platforms that are intersecting with each other. It can also be like if there's a little track that goes in the background or in the foreground or something, and how Bitey moves between them. It really depends, because it's all, you know, all the motion is in 2 dimensions, but we could have some depth there that we could play with. So you never know. It's just good to have the ability to, you just need all these tools in your toolbox, and then And then when Adam says, I have this great idea, I can say like, cool, we can do that. As opposed to, cool, that'll take 3 fucking months. There's no way we're getting any of that done. Oh, no, I totally know what you're saying. Okay, so we need to change the player logic to actually call these functions. So, one-way platform stuff is also if the left stick down action is down, movement, let's say clear, surface to be allowed, or what we need to do is and we're going to set it to something like 0.2 otherwise. So we want the controller here. And this is if we're on the ground. So we just take all this stuff and so let's see if this does anything like what we want. Yeah, we're having to complicate this logic a little bit more. More than I would like, at least. Okay, if you're in the air, this is set properly. If is key down, we're gonna set this surface allowed, otherwise. So let's see, what is actually going on here? It's the allowed Z diff is less than. It should be less than, shouldn't it? If it's greater than, yeah. So this is a less than. So it's going to be like if 0.2 is less than the difference, then yeah. Alright, let's see if that works. Kind of just muddling our way through all this shenaniganry. What the fuck? I mean, obviously something went horribly wrong there. Oh, whoops. Accidentally copy pasted over the condition that prevents us from falling through the floor. Um, yeah, that's not a good decision. You probably shouldn't fall through the floor if you can help it, and then get stuck in the floor. That's also not a good idea. So why did we fall through the floor to begin with? Allowed Z diff is less than hit impact normal versus surface Z. Oh, okay. Allowed Z diff is wrong. It's get surface Z diff. Z diff and Z diff. Alright. Just got stuff wrong. Alright, so if we're running along, we run along normally, but if I hold the down key, I run straight through. Alright, now let's try running through this platform. Normally it's like that. If I hold down, it's like that. Oh, that's so cool. Alright, that totally works. And it feels right too. Love it. That is really, really nice. Awesome. Well, that's definitely a victory. Yeah, that whole landing and then nicely running through it, that's pretty cool. So the question would be, how does it work with something like this? Because like if I'm running along normally like this, and if I hold down here, you would expect to not run through it. Well, let's see if this let's rotate this. What angle is this at? 45. So we'll just take it 90 degrees. So that works. So why didn't the blocking hit work? Is it because it wasn't at 45 degrees? Yeah, okay, it's the angle is a little bit too forgiving at the moment. The 0.2 actually should be something less, like 0.1. Let's see if that makes a difference. Like how you can get totally all the way down into this thing. It's just like how he settles. He's like, uh, uh, uh. Alright, well that's one-way platforms, and that's done. So I think I'm probably done for working for today then, because that's pretty cool. Got that finished. Because the next thing to work on is going to be a big camera overhaul and a whole bunch of stuff like that. So I think this is a really good stopping point. So I think we're gonna stop here then. And I'll check it all in. So, alright. And that really wasn't as painstakingly tedious as I thought it would be. It was, some parts of it were just like, but everything actually worked well. So that's always a good thing when that happens. So everything's good to go. So I am gonna sign off for now. So thanks for joining me and have a good one.